All right, well, Musharraf, Kwan, thank you for joining. Would you like to introduce yourselves?
Sure. First and foremost, I would like to thank you, Ezekiel, for taking the time to connect with us and talk about Ventrio and what we have been doing in for the government industry and also our overall commercial client base. Thank you very much. And my name is Musharraf Rashid, and I am president of Ventrio LLC. And we started the company back in, registered it in 2014, but in reality, really started doing anything with it in around 2018 timeframe. And I named the company Ventrio because win is something that everybody likes to win, right? That's what the end objective is. And trio is means three. Guess what? Where that comes from. So in my professional career, I started working for IBM fresh out of college and did a lot of technology consulting, architecture, programming, and all of those technical domain stuff. So that is one thing that I did in my career. Second thing I did was very much around proposals, solution architecture, capture, business development. So that to me is the second vertical.
Some technology, proposal development, business development. Okay.
Yes. So first is technology. The second was the capture and business development. And the third area is program management, portfolio management, where I was overseeing multiple programs as a portfolio manager, having P&L responsibility, making sure contractual compliance, vendors management, so on and so forth. So those are the three things that I did in my career. And
So,
that's how I started Ventrio.
oh, wow.
When Trio is the three things that I did. So
All right.
that's the foundation of it.
So, my name is Kwan Boatman. I am the president and CEO of Miles Edge Consulting, where we elevate performance with purpose. My focus is management and business advisory services to help support small to mid-sized businesses that either already have a mass schedule contract or a government-wide contract vehicle. Those are opportunities where businesses already have the foundation to be successful, and I want to help support them of getting to the next level of really helping to grow and expand their business to meet their needs, but also focusing on the federal government contracting area of looking where that matches up of supporting the right clients at the right time in order to help support the mission delivery of federal government agencies. So I have been supporting Wintrio in this effort. So we've been great partners in navigating Wintrio's support of really zoning in and figuring out how to be very intentional and deliberate on their strategy for growth.
I love it. Musharraf, tell us about your story. What do you do in this? I think it's very interesting that you look at the past in order to name your company. Can you tell us a little more? You were in GDIT, SAIC, CGI, IBM too. So I'm interested in learning a little bit what you did over there. What project? Do you remember what project? It was all federal, right? I imagine all the federal work in this largest.
Most of my experience has been federal, but I have also worked within commercial sector, like American Express is one prime example. Then I worked a lot in the insurance vertical or domain as well. And that happened while I was with IBM, because one of the great things that was there for me from IBM was that I was able to expose myself to multiple industries and at the same time, lots and lots of different and emerging technologies. So I was trying to connect my technical acumen with my business domain knowledge.
Gotcha. How about GDIT? What do you do there? I see Department of Labor.
Yes, exactly. So GDIT, my role was switched significantly. So I went from a very technical, hands-on architect kind of a person to a more of a solution architect who is looking at an enterprise level solutions, like this DOL example that you're pulling up. It was basically ERISA filing, which was over $100 million worth of effort So architecting the solution for that, and then looking at it from more of a concept of operations perspective in terms of what kind of skill set do we need to be successful at that. Similarly, what kind of processes need to put in place, what kind of a contingency aspects that we need to be thinking about. So it was more of a very overarching kind of a role. And I think that kind of prepared me for my next opportunity, which was with SAIC, where, of course, IBM was a very hardcore technical role, technical architect that I was doing leading projects from that perspective. General Dynamics was more of an overarching role, which was combining both business and technology. And then landing myself into program management, portfolio management now, where I understood technology, so I can very easily connect with the technical folks, starting from a developer all the way to a CTO and CIO person, right? Then looking at what are the business drivers for the client, how do we address those mission challenges and make things happen for our customers?
Right. So in a way, you are from technical to management a little bit, right? So IBM's
Yes.
technical, GDIT solution architect, technical program manager, and then CGI director consulting. Was that trend continued? Less technical. Let's confess, technical, more management. Is that correct? What happened?
Yes, you can say that. I was getting lesser technical because during my initial years, I was very hands-on. Pretty much, even I would code and all of those kind of things. But then I think the role started getting a little bit more diverse, where I had to focus on multiple other aspects as well. But having that technical background and strength
Oh yeah.
has always helped me even today
Well,
because you
it,
can understand the things and you can connect the dots very quickly. It gives you that analytical mindset.
So, okay, so in terms of agencies that you cover, so it's Department of Labor at the beginning, you continue with NIH, I believe, and then CMS, right? That was your last involvement as a consultant or employee of large integrators, correct? So you
Yes.
cover a few, which I think is an advantage. And did you guys cross paths, Juan and Musharraf, in that life or no? Or you met after?
We actually met after. When you talk about opportunities of valuable networking, we actually met and connected at an IAC event and really started to talk about some of the things that Wintrio was doing. And I just left the federal government after 15 years. I left as a senior at SES, Senior Executive Service. And I served as my last role, I served as the director for the Interior Business Center, which is federal government-wide federal shared service provider, where they provide assisted acquisition, HR and payroll services, as well as financial management services. So a really large breadth of portfolio and services of about 900 employees that support other federal government agencies. And Musharraf and I really started talking about some ways that I can leverage my expertise of really working in two agencies that were both non-appropriated and really served in those roles of business development, because not being appropriated at both the Interior Business Center and at General Services Administration, it really is about building those relationships with federal government agencies, earning that trust, and showing those outcomes that really are going to be able to help them to understand how you can provide services that continue to help their mission, but also help to see how those government contractors help support in that partnership. And I was just very impressed on the work that Wintrio continues to do, especially with not just with the federal government work, but some of the expertise with Fortune 100 companies like Walmart. How many companies do you know that have had that breadth of experience of working with a global company and a global supply chain? and bringing that type of expertise into the federal government to help support other government agencies. So it's truly valuable, and I was very impressed with the work and the expertise that Wintrio does. Most importantly, of what I really valued is how Musharraf is able to use Wintrio, that technical expertise that he really brings and the team brings, but layering that in a way that gives you that more white glove treatment of a small business. He really builds that, earns the trust of his customers and earns the trust based on true performance. And I was very impressed of Wintrio being an 8A company. And typically, sometimes 8As can get kind of settled in those 8A direct awards. But Musharraf's strategy was really not about, just winning on direct awards. He really wanted to be able to grow that business based on being able to compete, delivering on performance. And he has shifted a lot of those contract awards have shifted away from 8A direct awards until where he's able to show the value of the work that Wintrio does and compete for that business, and not only compete, but win business repeatedly and really growing and expanding that. And I think that shows the work that he's been able to accomplish.
Well, and I just realized I knew you were in DOI, but I didn't know that you were in Zurich Business Center. Actually, I'm a little bit familiar because I have pursued something. I have helped my customers want stuff because IBC procures for many agencies, right? So
yes,
you a little bit of an experience of how other agencies buy, correct?
Both working at IBC and at GSA, really understanding, in the experience of those two agencies, other federal government agencies are their clients and are their customers. So it really is understanding how they buy, what they buy, understanding their challenges, navigating their buying process, their buying decisions, or even navigating their own internal policies and culture of the organization. So those are the types of things that I think small businesses are opportunities for them to truly understand, and not just when they're meeting with other agencies, not coming in and selling, but really coming in and listening to the agencies, understanding their mission, understanding their pain points, learning the organization, learning the structure of the organization and their priorities, and layering that on top of what you offer and how you're able to solve those business challenges that agency or that client is trying to resolve, or trying to figure out how to make it work. And so that's when government and industry really become partners in that.
Hey, Kwame Musharraf, what do you think about the current environment? What change you think between the last administration and this one for government contractors, for vendors, for small businesses? Are the challenges for growth the same, or
Sure. Yes, sir. So I think the environment, as we all know, has changed a lot, significantly. I think the focus of this administration is somewhat different from what it used to be in the prior administration. And I think this administration, their focus is not as much on those socio-economic categories and some of those things. Of course, so I think even though that we are 8A, as Kwan was mentioning earlier, our motto has always been delivering consistent quality and always going above, over, and beyond for our customers. So I think that has kind of become a differentiating factor for us, because we always go for based upon our merit and the quality that we deliver. This is how we expand our business, with reputation, with internal referrals, because we always come through, kind of a thing. So from that 8A or socioeconomic perspective, we were not really impacted. So we are lucky from that perspective, number one. I think number two is pretty much, I think, given what the current environment is, each of the small businesses have to be looking at multiple options. At least we are doing it. For example, in our case, we were fully focused or more focused on federal. But now we are also pursuing state opportunities. As a
Oh,
matter of fact, we have recently won an opportunity out of state of Iowa, right? That's our first state opportunity that we have won. But we are definitely exploring and looking within states. The third area, as we were talking earlier, another differentiating factor for us is that we are not your typical federal IT contractor who is going from one agency to the next and so on and so forth. We have worked a lot with commercial sector as well. Just to name few, Walmart, which is a global giant, right? Verizon, a multinational company. Similarly, Blue Cross Blue Shield is another client in the healthcare sector that we have catered, right? So we are bringing best of the breed solutions from both commercial and government sectors as well, right?
yeah.
I mean, now if you think about it, for Walmart, it's a global model where we were providing 24 by 7 operational support, and we were doing pretty advanced kind of technologies and solutions that we were putting out. For example, they have this stuff from their gas stations, their mobile devices, data, right? So we have to extract that information and pretty much do analytics on that, trends analysis, figure out the promotions that need to happen based upon that information, extracting data from those devices. So that's one example. Second example is optimizing their supply chain, where basically you can do trends analysis, you can look at the data, historic data, and so on and so forth, and literally figure out exactly the inventory needs to be managed a lot more effectively, right? So your question was initially around like that. Okay, what has changed and how is it impacting?
Is that, for example, this administration, I think they value a little bit more commercial work. Am I wrong?
They do. And I think on that note, there are certain agencies that always prefer systems integrators like us, who are actually bringing in both federal and commercial experience. So that is a plus that is going in our favor. And then I think another thing that actually is something that personally I suggest that you should never rely on your socioeconomic status and some
Oh,
of those things, because I mean we have gotten full and open awards also, right? So we are preparing ourselves way ahead of time before we graduate from our 8A status in 2030, which is kind of 4 years out, but we are preparing and planning for it from today.
so have you submitted, have you competed so far in full and open?
And we did get an award.
Wow.
Yes, yes.
Wow, amazing. I'm
And
amazed.
I want to add to Mushar's comment about, now the administration is looking at, definitely wanting to compete and moving away from direct awards for socioeconomic categories. But we also have to keep in mind that the policies have not changed for the small business goals for agencies. The senior procurement executives still do have those types of goals in their performance plan. So, understand that there is kind of a balance there that depending on the agency, they may get some different direction, but the agencies still do have socioeconomic goals that they do have to meet. So it's a fine balance. We're all learning this new
Yeah.
environment and trying to figure out like how to make sure that we're being in alignment in order to still be able to compete to win business successfully.
Juan, what are, do you think, the main challenges for small businesses to grow at this point? Other than don't focus on your, demographics, focus on adding value. What do you think are the 2 or 3 main challenges if you have to name?
Yeah, so I think one of the main challenges right now for small businesses is the barrier to entry. The barrier to entry for small businesses is becoming much greater. Now with some of the requirements for CMMC, that is a huge barrier for small businesses to be able to, one, start their own business. And many times they're starting as a solo or single owner business, and then having to figure out that additional capital to invest just for that CMMC types of, just being able to be qualified to be able to compete for business. So we're trying to figure out, like, how do small businesses be able to figure out how to make that work for them? There's no good answer. And Musharraf and I were attending an event last night, and we were talking with another small business. Now, he already has his certification, but his concern is still everyone else. So it's not just about, your own self. As small businesses, we care about the success of our own communities. We care about the success of other small businesses, because ultimately those small businesses are the foundation for our communities, for our economies, for jobs in our local area. And so those are important. And if we aren't able to grow and develop small businesses, that is going to be, it'll stall those opportunities for economic growth and development, and providing, more jobs for our areas. So that's one of the areas that we really need to figure out, how do we equalize that for small business growth and reduce those barriers to entry?
How do you differentiate their offerings, or what are the main capabilities that you guys have? And if you have some success stories, benefits that you provided to customers?
So I think on that front, probably what I'm going to say is that we have three core capabilities. Number one, cybersecurity. And of course, it has zero trust and NIST compliance, FedRAMP, so on and so forth, right? Number two, it's cloud DevOps, pretty much operations, infrastructure, those kind of aspects. And number three is your emerging tech. Yes, these days, every business wants to talk about AI, machine learning, and data science. So that is one area where we have practically implemented multiple use cases successfully for more than one agencies. For example, for USDA NAS, which is National Agricultural Statistics Services, their sole purpose is to do agricultural census on a regular basis. So basically, they are collecting your data from nationwide farmers across all 50 states. They're asking questions, for example, what's your acreage? How much livestock you have? How much wheat did you grow last year? And so on and so forth, to kind of give you an idea, right? So they collect that information, then they process that information, and then they disseminate it. And some of that data and information gets goes over to Congress also, and for research purposes, academia, and multiple other places.
If you can say a little bit of the benefits that you
Sure.
provide, then
Sure. So I think let me go back. I just got it up. So like AI and data science we were talking about. And then of course the business problem that I just described to you around agricultural census process. If you think about it, it's a very overarching business challenge, because it does, from a technology perspective, it entails your software development for sure, modernization. Then it basically moving the data from your cloud, like on-premise environments, data centers, over to cloud environment. So that's the infrastructure component that comes in. Then pretty much cybersecurity, that has to be front and center, because the data that we are collecting, it has PI in it. It has lots of different stats, because all of those stats actually drive your commodity prices. Because let's say if you have lesser wheat this year, guess what? The wheat price is going to go up. All of that information it has to be dealt in a very secure manner, right?
That sounds like data. Is AI involved in that project of collecting data, aggregating, making statistics? Is AI involved in that project? Is that what you're saying?
Very much. I'll give you certain examples. We have data dating back to 1800s. So somebody has to go in, look at that data, do trends analysis. One scenario, right? Second scenario is where there are paper applications, paper survey forms that are coming back from all your farmers in the states, right? So you have to sort of scan them, but then you have to be able to make sense out of that data, right? Because previously, the accuracy for that data collection was around 50%. After implementation of our solution, that accuracy has gone up to 90 plus percent.
Got
Imagine what's the benefit to the agency, because now data quality has improved significantly. We can instantly figure out where the gaps are in the data. Because guess what? I mean, if you're collecting data from 50 states, each state or many of those states don't have a standardized system, right? So I mean, that's a typical problem that occurs at every other agency: data collection, data quality, data consistency, all of those kind of things, right?
And we sure one of the things that is truly that outcome or the result is because of that change, it's that faster data ingestion by
Mhm.
200%. That's
Exactly.
outstanding.
so then,
Exactly. Data ingestion has improved by 200%. Something else that I can touch upon is that we have been able to design and develop a cloud platform called NICE. It stands for NAS Integrated Cloud Environment. And as we talked before, NAS stands for National Agricultural Statistics Services. So basically, I mean, you can think of that cloud platform in a way where it sits between your cloud services provider, which can be Amazon, Microsoft Azure, GCP, etc., and all of your downstream applications. Let's say you have 50 applications in your agency. Now, if the services at the cloud level change, there should be no impact on the downstream applications, right? So this is what that NICE cloud platform is providing to the agency. It's been a huge success for the agency, and now they have mandated its use across the agency for whether it's a new development or it's any application that's in its O&M mode. And basically, there is a 40% code reuse that has taken place because of this cloud platform. And especially these days that every agency is looking to modernize its infrastructure, it has basically improved the 50% O&M cost. Why? Because lots of functionality you're getting out of the box. On day one, if you're modernizing your most mission critical application, you're 40% there. Now you have to basically code your business logic and things like that. So it's been a big success. And just on that note, we have been a recipient of Circle Award for being the top performing vendor and the impact that we have made for the agency by NAS administrator. Similarly, exceptional CPARs. Another important thing is basically we are the finalist of Government Contractor of the Year and Government Project of the Year by CCAF, right? So this is what we were talking about, that we are very different from your typical small business, because I am a hands-on practitioner and I always like to make sure that we go way above, over and beyond what's been asked of us, right?
Raf,
Delivering consistent quality.
what is the award about? What was the government contract of the year and what was the project of the year? Is it USDA as well, NAS? This is related to NAS contracts?
Yes, so I think part of that is connected to USDA NAS. NICE is one example, and there are multiple other examples, accomplishments that we have been able to deliver for the agency. For example, they had almost 13 Sybase database systems, right? Sybase is from 1980s, and who has carried that thing over to the cloud? We have done that for them within a matter of days. So that was part of their modernization roadmap, and within a matter of days, right? And then I think the other thing is, had we not been able to succeed in that mission or task, pretty much all of their downstream applications that were feeding data off of those 13 systems would have been impacted. So that was a major roadblock that was addressed by our team. And similarly, I think other areas NICE Cloud Platform we talked about, we have been able to make 4 applications production ready in 2025. I mean, how many times have you heard that you can actually do 4 applications in 12 months? And not only that, we have been able to hand them back to application owners because generally in the government contracting industry, whenever the contractor walks in, boom, they're going to be there for the next 25 years. In
Right.
our case, we did 4 applications, we handed them back to the government customer, and they are delighted about it.
So I'll go, Musharraf, you talked a lot about the example for the project of the year. But for government contractor of the year, I think that's really the story. Understanding 2025 was hard, not just for small businesses, but for everyone. But I think for small businesses, it really was more of an impact because they're already small, they're already lean. But for Wintrio, 2025, even though it was a difficult year and lots of companies were getting contracts terminated, having to lay off staff. And for 2025, even though there was a little bit of contracts that were terminated, Wintrio actually brought on 2 new clients, 2 new customers, won 2 new contracts in 2025. And so even though there was a significant impact and a lot of disruption for last year, Wintrio was very deliberate in their customer diversification upfront. So even ahead of 2025, understanding where they wanted to kind of grow the scope outside of not just focusing on USDA, but growing outside of that and being able to, quickly pivot and still being able to be lean, but also winning business in a really tough, challenging year.
So you grew in new agencies or existing agencies, or maybe both in 2025?
Both sides, actually.
Hey, Kual Musharraf, thanks so much for joining.